Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content. Subscribe and turn on notifications. You see that man by the bar? Damien said, loud enough for half the rooftop to hear. He had one hand around a champagne flute and the other resting on my wife's bare back like he had every right in the world. That's Claire's husband. Nice guy, I guess. Just not useful. Some men build things. Some men just stand around and watch. People laughed. Not everyone. A few guests looked down into their drinks. A woman near the floral arch winced. But Claire smiled. She actually smiled. Then Damien took another sip, looked me dead in the eye, and said, to vision, to ambition, and to finally leaving dead weight behind. That was the moment my lawyer stepped out of the elevator with a leather folder under his arm and told the event manager to cut the music. By the end of that night, my wife found out the boutique hotel she was celebrating was legally mine. And the part that still keeps me up sometimes isn't the betrayal. It's how proud she looked right before everything collapsed. My name is Ethan. I'm 38, and until a year ago, I thought I had a stable life. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't loud. I ran numbers, built investment structures, handled acquisitions for small commercial properties, and preferred staying behind the scenes. I wasn't the kind of man people noticed when he entered a room, but I was the kind they called when something complicated needed to be solved. Claire used to say that was what made her feel safe with me. We met 12 years ago when she was working front desk at a hotel downtown and taking night classes in hospitality management. She was warm, sharp, beautiful without trying too hard, and she had this hunger in her. Not greed, not back then. She wanted more out of life, and I admired that. I helped her study for exams. She listened when I talked about cap rates and financing models. When we got married, she said we'd build something together. For a long time, I believed we were. When the marriage changed, it didn't happen all at once. It happened in tiny humiliations. Claire stopped asking about my day. Then she stopped pretending to care about the answer. She started correcting me in front of people, little things at first. My clothes. My posture. The way I spoke. She said I was too quiet, too cautious, too ordinary. You hide behind spreadsheets, she told me one night over dinner. Some people actually create experiences. I remember staring at her because the contempt in her voice felt new. A month later, she told me she wanted to open a boutique hotel. Not someday. So, she had mood boards, design sketches, brand names, supplier lists. She talked about signature scent branding and curated guest journeys and exclusive partnerships. She had done her homework, I'll give her that. But what she didn't have was funding, operational experience at that level, or any clue how ugly commercial financing could get once lenders started asking real questions. I helped anyway. That's probably the part people don't understand. They hear what happened and ask why I kept supporting her. Because that's what marriage looked like to me. If the person you love has a dream, you don't stand there calculating the exit route. You help. So I did what I was good at. I found a distressed historic property in a growing district. I ran the numbers. I flagged zoning issues. I negotiated through a shell entity because the seller was already fielding attention and I didn't want the price pushed up. I connected the deal to a holding company that was ultimately tied to a family trust my late father had set up years earlier. It was cleaner that way for taxes, liability, and future restructuring. Claire didn't care about any of that. She just wanted the keys and the photos and the fantasy. At first, she acted grateful. Then, once the renovation started and the place began to look real, she started talking like she had done it all alone. At dinners, she'd say things like, I found the property, even though she hadn't even seen the street until after I had the inspection report. Then it became, I built this from nothing. Then, some people around me didn't really believe in me, but I believed in myself. The some people was me. Always me. I noticed other things too. New perfume she didn't wear for me. Her phone face down. Late vendor meetings that somehow always ended after midnight. A sudden obsession with Pilates classes she never let me attend because they were for women in the industry. She started guarding her laptop. She started dressing for dinners I wasn't invited to. Then came Damien. Officially, he was a branding consultant. That was Claire's phrase. Branding consultant. He was in his early 30s, expensive haircut, perfect teeth, loud confidence. The kind of man who learned a few buzzwords and delivered them like wisdom. Every time I was around him, he acted like I was a valet who had wandered into the conversation. The first time we met, he shook my hand and said, "So you're the husband. Claire mentioned you're more of a finance guy." More of a finance guy. I smiled and said, "That tends to help when someone's building a hotel." He laughed like I'd made a cute joke. Claire laughed with him. That night, when we got home, I told her I didn't trust him. She rolled her eyes. "You're threatened by men who actually have presence." I still hear that sentence. I didn't go looking for proof after that. I started by looking for reassurance. That's what humiliates you later. You tell yourself you're being paranoid. You try to be fair. You give the person who's lying to you every chance to stop. Then one Tuesday, Claire left her tablet at home. It lit up while I was making coffee. I wasn't planning to touch it. Then I saw Damien's name and the preview line beneath it. "Can't wait until tonight." He still has no idea, does he? My whole body went cold. I opened the thread. There were months of messages. Hotel budgets mixed with hotel room photos. Complaints about me. Jokes about how safe I was. Claire telling him I was useful on paper, but not a man anyone desires. Damien calling me boring, soft, predictable. There was one voice note I listened to twice because the first time I couldn't believe it. Claire laughing and saying, "Once opening night is done, I'm filing. Let him think he helped. That's all he's good for." I didn't smash the tablet. I didn't call her screaming. I sat down at the kitchen table and listened to every word until I stopped shaking. Then I called my lawyer. His name is Martin Rosen. He's 62, precise, unflappable, and incapable of panic. He had handled estate matters for my father years ago and later helped me structure several holdings. When I told him I needed to see him privately, he cleared his afternoon. I brought him the messages, the voice note, the entity documents, everything. He listened. Then he asked one question. "Has title ever been transferred out of Hawthorne Holdings?" "No." He nodded once. "Then Claire does not own the hotel." I remember just staring at him. Technically, I had always known that. I built the acquisition structure. But I had been so focused on the marriage, on the betrayal, that I hadn't fully absorbed the absurdity of what she was doing. Claire had spent a year acting like queen of a kingdom that was never hers. Martin reviewed everything. The operating agreements. The funding trail. The trust protections. The prenup Claire had signed before our wedding, the one she barely read because she said love made paperwork feel insulting. It turned out paperwork had a better memory than love. "Do nothing yet," Martin said. "Let them proceed." That's when the hurt changed. Not into rage. Into clarity. I stopped arguing with Claire. I stopped asking where she'd been. I stopped volunteering help she no longer deserved. I let her talk. I let Damien posture. Quietly, with Martin's guidance, I froze further discretionary funding. I documented communications. I copied internal files. I requested updated vendor ledgers through channels Claire assumed were routine. The picture got uglier fast. Damien had been pushing inflated branding invoices through a subcontractor tied to his cousin. Claire had approved them. Personal expenses were buried as promotional costs. Spa weekends. Designer gifts. Flights. There was enough there for civil action if I wanted it. Still, I said nothing. Then Claire handed me an embossed invitation to the grand opening and said, "You should come. It'll be good for you to see what success looks like up close." I looked at the card. Her name was centered in gold. Founder. Not owner. Founder. She was careful with words when she thought words mattered. The night of the opening, the hotel looked stunning. Restored brick. Amber lighting. White orchids everywhere. Staff in tailored black uniforms. A violinist near the staircase. Influencers, investors, local press. Claire moved through the crowd like she'd already rewritten her own history. She wore a silver dress I had never seen before. When she kissed my cheek, she whispered, "Please don't make this awkward." An hour later, Damien made his toast. He spoke about courage, vision, stepping into a new era. Then he looked at me and took his shot. Useless. Deadweight. Some men watch while others build. And Claire let him. She didn't interrupt. Didn't defend me. Didn't even look ashamed. I think part of her wanted that public humiliation. One last step before replacing me entirely. That was when Martin arrived. He didn't rush. He never rushed. He walked straight to the event manager, showed identification, and asked for the microphone and music cut. The room shifted immediately. Wealthy rooms know authority when they hear it. Claire frowned. Martin? What are you doing here? He turned to her politely. Representing the owner. Damien laughed. The owner is standing right there. Martin opened his folder. No. Ms. Bennett is not the owner of this property. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear ice settling in glasses. Claire's smile stayed in place for about 2 seconds too long. There's obviously some confusion. There isn't, Martin said. The property is owned by Hawthorne Holdings, beneficially controlled through the Bennett Family Trust. My client, Ethan Bennett, is the sole controlling beneficiary and authorized principal. You could actually watch the color leave her face. Damien looked at me, then at Claire. What is he talking about? I took my time before answering. I'm talking about the fact that you insulted me in a building I bought, renovated, and legally own. Claire stepped toward me, lowering her voice. Ethan, not here. I almost laughed. Not here? Claire, you were ready to divorce me after opening night and keep playing Hotel Queen with your boyfriend. Here seems perfect. That word landed like broken glass. Boyfriend. A reporter near the back lifted her phone a little higher. Claire hissed, "Stop this." Martin didn't. He handed copies to the event manager, a representative from the bank, and one of the investors who had financed adjacent improvements. Then he said, in the same calm tone, "Additionally, there are serious concerns regarding misuse of company funds and fraudulent vendor approvals. We advise all parties to preserve records immediately." Damien's confidence vanished so fast it almost looked painful. He turned on Claire. "You said this was yours." Claire looked at him with the wild eyes of someone realizing the lie she'd been living in had just become public fact. It was supposed to be transferred. I answered that one. It was never supposed to be transferred. Guests started backing away, pretending not to stare while staring harder than ever. One woman from the press quietly slipped out, no doubt to file something before midnight. The investor Martin had spoken to was already on the phone. The event manager looked like she wanted the floor to open and swallow her. Damien tried one last move. "This is a private marital dispute." Martin shut that down. "No. This is a property control issue with potential financial misconduct." That was the end of the party. Within 48 hours, Claire moved out of our house. Damien disappeared even faster. Funny how men like that are fearless right up until there are documents involved. He later sent a pathetic message claiming Claire had misrepresented the situation. My lawyer advised me not to reply. The divorce was brutal for Claire, mostly because reality was. The prenup held. The message history hurt her badly. The financial records hurt more. Some vendors cooperated once they realized their invoices might be examined in court. 2 investors sued separately over misrepresentation. Claire didn't go to jail, but she came close enough to understand what real fear feels like. Socially, the fall was even faster. People who had toasted her ambitions suddenly remembered every lie, every cruel little performance, every time she used someone and called it networking. Damien's reputation took a hit too. Apparently, branding consultant sounds less impressive when followed by under review for fraudulent billing. As for the hotel, I kept it. Not because of her. Because despite everything, it was a good asset. I hired a serious management team, dropped the vanity nonsense, fixed the vendor issues, and reopened under a new name 6 months later. It's doing well now. Quietly well. The way real businesses should. People sometimes ask me if exposing her in public felt good. The truth is, not in the way they think. It didn't feel triumphant. It felt clean. Like setting down something heavy you didn't realize you'd been carrying for years. I lost a marriage. But by the time it ended, I understood I had been fighting for a version of Claire that no longer existed, maybe never did. The woman I loved would never have smiled while another man called me useless. She would never have built her confidence on my silence. She would never have mistaken patience for weakness. These days, my life is quieter. Better. I sleep through the night. I eat dinner without checking the emotional temperature of the room. I trust myself more. That's the real win no one talks about. Not revenge. Not exposure. Just peace. And every now and then, when I walk through that lobby and see guests checking in under warm lights, I remember that night on the rooftop. Damien grinning. Claire glowing. Both of them so certain I was the smallest person in the room. They were wrong. I was just the only one there who knew who actually owned the building. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.